The usual. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the usual? Yeah. I mean, is it different every time you come in? Or is it...
No, we do the same thing.
Oh, okay. I just wondered if Caesar's usual was whatever he was ready to feed you.
Where you had the most stuff.
Right.
We went to Tony's and they don't speak English there very much. We don't speak Spanish very much. So I guess it was I ordered a comida by accident and got all the condiments or dishes with my tacos, and Carolyn just ended up with 3 tacos. She was quite slighted.
See.
I could have. I guess I could have done that, and I did share some of it. I did share some of it, but I got.
Gee, that was nice.
And I got that too. Under each taco, I had a taco, another tortilla. First, we're just like, so give her some line.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Tony's in years. We haven't been to Tony's for many, many
It's
years.
nice feeling there. You know, there's always as many services as there are people.
Yeah,
What place is this?
Tony's next to the Talavera store.
It's a taco stand.
Oh, I don't think I've ever been
You
there.
know, Tony used to be over there, and we drove around in the
Is he
truck.
still
and
selling
doing-
it?
Used to be the guy sold all the fruits.
Oh, right.
Now he's
Yeah.
got a place next to.
This stuff.
I guess, yeah, I guess he used to buy produce to eat when he had the restaurant there.
Since I've known him, he was there at this little produce place. No, he went to where La Calaca is. After he moved from his fruit stand to the place where La Calaca, and he and developed that. He rebuilt some of that and got a liquor license. He was telling when he was at the Happy he was going to have a liquor license, but they punted him out of there. Oh, yeah, but at the one time when he was in that actual, but now you bring a 6-pack with you,
Yeah.
which is fine.
Well, then he got pretty good.
It's very nice, you know, like they you know how the cheese comes in rounds and stuff like that. So they were cracking around. You shared cheese with
He
them.
must have really been an
Chihuahua
expert
cheese.
in choosing the right.
Yeah.
This stuff is always very good.
Yeah, I think we're just on the cusp of starting, but I did want to share one anecdote from restaurant etiquette that I first learned when I came to San Carlos, was that if you have ordered something and they've replaced something, you should not complain about it. You might regret it, because what they replaced it with is the absolute best they could give you. If you insist on those French fries that you got beans replaced for, you're going to regret those French fries. They knew it in the kitchen, and that's why they gave you beans.
Probably true.
It wasn't just a mistake.
It wasn't a mistake. It was intentional, and it was because of what they could provide to you that would make you happy.
Because
And
they
the
like
French
you.
fries were not going to make you happy. The beans might not make you happy either, but the beans definitely would have made them happy. Seeing the French fries.
We went to Putupiana Friday night. Saturday night.
What's the name of that?
Putupiana, in Customary Hotel.
Oh, I think that's good.
It was good, easy. Yeah, yeah, it's good. It's good.
Gosh, I don't know that one either.
It's in the Customary Hotel.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And
Oh, I'm sorry, the new hotel that's on. Our experience was very big, but we might have gone
Really?
too soon. when they-
well, I was there once, and then I went back Saturday night. It was good.
Maybe they got their ducks in a row now.
I had a tenderloin, and it was good.
Hey, I'm going to introduce this meeting. So give me 1 second. I'm Scott Stemson from International Computer Solutions. You are the sub, and apparently we have nobody in our virtual meeting this morning.
You'll be the welcome.
Just to make me feel better that somebody's on, go right ahead.
Well, I was there one, and then I went back Saturday night. It was good.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to introduce this meeting. It is not important to log in person, but it is important for me to get a feeling for who out there is still participating in these meetings. And this morning we have a small group here and we have nobody online.
Liar, liar.
Hey, Judy's doing ominous special effects. Turn off your microphone, please. That's interesting. I don't see it popping up on my screen anywhere, though.
I see you.
Yeah, I don't see you, though.
I'm gonna try to keep checking in from Vancouver
Let
Island.
me see what I've done
We
here.
do. Next week, or no, 2 weeks from now is when we leave. We'll check in on the road.
Yeah, I've seen you on the road.
Yeah, we might check in and say hi, but usually Cheryl's got her phone. It's got to be a phone because it's got to be on a data plan.
You may not see me, but I'm on.
Yeah, Chester's on. Hi, Chester. Boy, I don't know why I don't see you. I don't see you anywhere. And I don't see Judy either.
I just logged out.
Oh, okay. Give me one moment. I'm trying to figure out why it's not working. Right? Chester, you stay there. I'm coming right back.
Couldn't be computer clock.
We're here to solve problems. We have that problem.
Right. Does anybody have a solution for Scott and why he can't see everyone in the meeting?
Turn it off, turn it on.
Oh, I got it. I'm looking at the wrong meeting. There we go. Chester's with us online. Well,
Thank you. And I have a subject whenever you call for them.
oh, great, because that's what I'm hoping is just in typical fashion. I've brought a couple of news articles that I sent out to you guys yesterday that I thought you'd find interesting or entertaining. And, but I am always more interested in what you guys are doing. So if Chester has come with a subject, let's get on with it. What do you got, Chester?
Well, I was reading in the Wall Street Journal yesterday on a subject called security key. It's apparently a USB device you can hook into your computer, and it takes the place of passwords.
Yeah, or supplements with additional authentication. And these are just USB flash drives that have been purposely formatted for this activity, and you can set up you can use Macintosh computers and Linux computers so that the login has to be coupled with one of these devices being plugged into a USB port. And then it can also be used like a password manager. Am I right, Chester? Is that what you're reading? Are you still there, Chester? Did I lose you?
I'm here, but I lost you.
Oh.
Repeat it, please.
Oh, all I was saying is that not only could they be used as a physical key to get into computers, but nowadays they can also be used like a password manager so that it can help you get into all your authentications.
Okay, let me ask this question. I'm using to check on my, and I have a special password for my bank accounts. Will this change all of that?
Not necessarily. Limited experience with these because I've never adopted to one, but I believe that there are ones that are certified by banks. The name that's escaping me right now, I think it's UbiKey is the one I'm familiar with.
That's the most important one. The other one is Titan, Titan, and
need to approve the key that you use.
That's kind of like the little
Hey,
speed
you
bump
want more coffee?
you have to push to get a code every time.
Well, I mean, in the fact that you're trying to do two-factor authentication, that's correct. This has the added benefit of recognize that's being used for authentication. So when you plug it into a device, it is authorizing this device that you're on, not like that YubiKey or the one-time password generator that's done on a time loop. That can be used for any device.
Right.
Whereas you could set securities on something like this that it doesn't work unless it's in conjunction with this particular device, this particular laptop, or this particular phone. It depends on your level of security that you need.
How would you plug it into your phone?
Yeah, you could through your we have these USB ports, and it could be built so that that's the way to use it. But honestly, you'd probably just use an app on your phone at this point. Yeah, into one of these.
Right.
So if you didn't have the thumb drive, would your computer be shut down basically, or could you bypass it?
Well, it all depends on the level of security. But yes, you could set up a level of security so high that if you didn't have the thumb drive, you were out of luck.
Would you recommend one?
I can't recommend one, Chester, just because I don't feel like I have enough experience to see how the pros outweigh the cons. It definitely requires more research from all of us, I guess, because I feel like I'm probably at the same level you are at this point. I've just never been in an environment where we had to use them, so I haven't spent any time really getting to know them. They've been around for a long time, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very popular with people that have big security concerns. So if you listen to any security podcasts or security news, they'll talk about them from time to time. That's where most of my knowledge comes from. Is it's all theoretical, and I've heard these guys talking about them, but I've never used one.
I guess I don't see the advantage on a personal system, because if you're logging into a secure banking system, you're going through the two-factor authentication anyway.
Well, the more items that are there to verify who you are,
Yes,
then the more secure your verification is.
I understand that. Yeah. There comes a point where it's
Well, you're right, because it's always a balance. Security is always this balance of convenience with security. So no, maybe it doesn't make sense to you. It probably makes a lot more sense to a CIA guy
right.
than it does to you. And so you're always,
Well,
yeah.
I didn't want that out on the air.
Sorry, too late. It's out there. But I use those extreme examples to point out that security is always a balance with convenience. It always, because there's no such thing as 100, there is 100% convenient. That's what a grandchild's for. But there is no such thing as 100% secure. And so you're always, it's this aspirational destination that you're trying to get to. And you have all these pitfalls as you're getting to that kind of ultimate security. And you've got to decide what's more convenient for you in this battle for overall security. And this could push it too far for you, Judy. You could decide that. And, you know, I think you can have these thoughts about a lot of the things that we have in our world. Credit cards, I think, are a great example. We have been lulled into this mentality in the United States that credit cards are very secure when they're absolutely not very secure. But they're always protected. And that's my point, is that the credit card companies have spent lots of money making sure we have the convenience of not worrying about the security. They have insurance, they have policies in place. They don't necessarily have that in other parts of the world, but in the United States, they've taught us that if we're going to get our money back, please keep spending.
So ultimately, you have us to thank for it, because the banks go bust, as we've seen recently, taxpayers on the hook. So they don't have to worry about it. This is the cycle that's been going on for my lifetime.
Or isn't that a different set of funds and different, I mean, like I agree with you that it's the mentality that they're creating from us.
The funds come from two places.
Yeah.
They come from taxation, primarily inflation, because that's the one we can't protest.
Well, and what I'm really referring to is the credit cards and how they ensure the thefts are not, you're not responsible. That's not federally insured, is it? That's the insurance companies.
Ultimately, that's a profit and loss thing. The bottom line is that the people that manage these banks, which are very large, it's not, we're not dealing with little banks like they did in the 20s and stuff. It's a global thing, and ultimately, everybody's too big to fail. So they can, the banks have a fraction of the reserves that they're supposed to have, and sometimes none whatsoever through false accounting to cover these losses. So when these losses happen, like this two giant banks here and Credit Suisse, who's been around forever, basically they're not going bust. It's the taxpayers, because that's where all money comes from.
Well, again, I was bringing up as an example of convenience versus security, and we have the convenience of using credit cards because the companies see the profit in us not being scared to use them, not being scared to lose them, not being scared of them being stolen. It really is our ends. That's the only thing we're concerned about, because we know they're not going to.
We don't care about that.
Yeah, it's like, my gosh, I'm going to have to go 48 hours without a credit card.
Why should we care about them? They've lost money.
Right. So there you go. That's where we're at with the security, and a lot of this stuff they really are putting on you, because the life just goes on. Things get compromised, and you hear about 1 million passwords are out there on the open market. Identity theft is a real thing. It's something that we should all be concerned about. And at the same time, life goes on. Everybody's still doing their transactions.
It's like that password manager, which we all agreed at one time was a good thing, and I subscribed, so I paid for it. And now we found out they were hacked, and their stuff is out in the public. And of course, I don't use it anymore, even though I paid for it. I
researched and picked another one that is highly accredited called Bitwarden, and pretty happy to have moved to something else. I shut down all the LastPass stuff, and then I'm reading just the other day in Security Press that it's been compromised, and so I have to go through all the details. And this is a security document, so it's like really, but in a nutshell, it's very hard to compromise Bitwarden. They basically have to have access to the device to compromise it.
Well, if we project way out there, how about crypto, your favorite crypto?
You keep saying that.
Well, used to, once you state yourself,
I'm not, I'm still, nothing has happened that's changed my feelings about crypto. Nothing has changed my feelings about
anyway,
crypto.
it's all digital, and there's a supposedly enormous passwords that are involved. But eventually, they're going to be broken.
Well,
to the rescue. I said AI to the rescue.
Right, they're probably going to be broken by AI.
That's what I'm saying.
We were talking about AI earlier before you folks got here. Bill was asking me if you have run into ChatGPT in the products.
I'm using Bard. I signed up.
Oh, good. I haven't even tried Bard yet. Okay. So what's your experience?
I like it because I think it's much simpler than AI. And it gives much less depth in the answers. But the answer seems, it's not as informative. It's not going into the high tech, and it's not going out there. But for basic information, I would say it's like Google.
I've heard that it's kind of a whimpering, considering that all this stuff is built on stuff that Google made open to begin with, because they wanted transparency in this field. They wanted to encourage other developers to roll with it. It's not as impressive as the other things that they've seen.
By design.
Yeah.
They feel by doing that, from what I've been able to read, that they're going to eliminate a lot of false information, false answers. And so basically they're filtered. What AI really shouldn't be filtered. It should be, pretty good.
What I found fascinating about it, I did a key difference, and this is only from reading about it because I have not experienced it, that Google, unlike others, this Bard AI, is giving you the second, third, and fourth results, so that if you don't like the first answer, you can see what it decided that answer was better than. So you can see how off the rails it may have gone, or how it's just not lining up with what you're looking for.
And also they state this is a very limited version. They're purposely keeping it simple. And then they take it and using it as a better tool to get feedback so that they can design their system the way they want it. Supposedly they're going to be more conservative than the other sites.
Well, I mention it because I have not gone out looking for AI ChatGPT in Microsoft products. What they've been saying is that they're going into the Office suite, so you're going to have it available to you in Word, you're going to have it available in Excel, PowerPoint. I think that's their plan. And what I've heard, at least up until this big release, was that if you want to see it in Bing, then you had to set Microsoft Edge as your main browser. You had to set Bing as your primary search engine, and then ChatGPT will be integrated into what you're doing. And one of the things that Bing is doing, and again, this is all just what I've listened to in news reports. I've not experienced this, but what it's fundamentally doing is Bing is taking the questions you're asking, Binging for the information, taking that information and stacking it as prompts to ChatGPT, and then using those results and sending them back to you. So it's this interaction where the ChatGPT is getting in the middle of these Bing searches.
Okay. Here's the thing with Bing. Stay away. They take over your computer. They're horribly intrusive.
Hey, Jim, I think we're listening to you do breakfast. How are you doing this morning?
Oh, damn.
I was going to mute you, but for some reason I can't
Good morning,
mute you.
you guys. So sorry. I am muting it right now.
Thank you, sir. Well, the one thing I have run into, and it's just recently, I opened up Skype and I found that they have a ChatGPT Skype recipient there in your list of contacts. So if you want to really quick have a conversation with this AI that's gotten so much press, just open up your Skype and you're going to find a ChatGPT there that you can chat with.
Well, ultimately, one of the problems I foresee is going to be the downside. It's like we eliminated the telephone operator. When we were young, we called, asked the operator for help. Now there are no operators, and it's all online. And while it's more efficient, saves a huge amount of money for the company, most often you can't solve any problem. You could get information very easily, but you can't go into anything technical whatsoever. So that'll be the downside here too. The more we automate, the less human interaction and the less solving of real problems occur.
Well, a good example of that, actually, right now, I just finished listening to the podcast from The Verge. And one of the things that they did, very, very transparently, they wrote an article called The Best Printer for 2023, which they all agree that's whatever Brother has on. I mean, if you're looking for the best printer 2023, The Verge says the best printer is whatever Brother has on sale. That's a laser printer. That's the best printer.
Where they're funding.
So what they did, because this is so well known in the marketplace, is they asked ChatGPT to write that, or was it Bard? It was one of the two. They had it write the article, and then without changing the article at all, they filled it up with all the Google SEO stuff, the search engine optimization stuff. that allows your interests to percolate up to the top, and they had it automatically write it, and then they used Google's automatic tools to push it all the way up into the search rankings. So it was one of the #1 articles to be found when you're looking for a printer. It was written by a robot. It was propagated by a robot, promoted by a robot. It's a good example of what you're saying, where is any of this reality anymore? Who's to say whether that's the best printer or not? Apparently the robot says it's the best, but it bases that bestness on all the programming, all the
other robots.
Yeah, all the other robots. It's exactly what it is that these search results that the robots give us are the highest ones, so that's the most appropriate. So we're going to write it about that, which will end up with resulting in an article that's going to get the highest search results. It's a catch-22 of logic that's
Like
going on there.
where you have journalists interviewing journalists.
Probably a good analogy. Robots, yeah, interviewing robots.
So you call a help desk and they only can do what their lists tell them to do. They can't really solve a problem. If you have gone through their troubleshooting steps, then they want you to go through it over and over. I was on the phone with Amazon, back to my Amazon before, where it was not letting me track. I was on there and I finally got so annoyed with this woman. I said, I'm really sorry, but I really need your supervisor. So that was another 20-minute wait on hold, but I got this woman. She said, well, let me run through what's been done. And I said, please don't, I've done all your troubleshooting. And she said, well, that's all we can do, I'll report it. Well, gee, I placed an Amazon order day before yesterday and I can now track it.
Oh, it's fixed now.
Yeah.
Was it just, that was,
It was
Just you?
just my
Just you?
iPad.
Oh, just
I don't know. It was fine on my phone. I could track. It was fine on my laptop. I could track because we're going to Amazon.com, but
Wait,
it would not track here.
This is a great story. So they did not walk you through any new steps. It's just.
Oh, they walked me through the new steps over and over again, but they were already the steps that I had.
Right, and they weren't fixing any. Overnight, it just starts working. And it was working on the phone, was working on the laptop, but it was never working on the iPad. And after they said, we're going to report it higher, you went to go check it 24 hours later, and it's just working now.
Because their steps are uninstall, reinstall, shut down, restart, uninstall, reinstall, empty the cache, which when you delete an app on an iPad, it empties the cache anyway. So.
Yeah, to be fair, those all sound like the steps you should take to fix a problem like
Right.
you're describing.
Right.
I mean, they're not wrong to point you in those directions. They just weren't working.
They are wrong to point me in those directions when I go.
Well,
through
again
the
and again and
steps.
again.
No, but I said, these are the things that I have done.
Yeah.
She said, okay, well, let's do it again.
Yeah, no other
But the
answers at that
supervisor
point.
was able to report it. I'm afraid to check it right now because maybe it doesn't work again.
they're listening, they're listening.
That's right.
Said, now we're
Well, at
going
least you finally got a person.
I
There's
did.
a lot of places there are no persons, like these.
Well,
iOS
Amazon
right now, there
has
is
a-
no persons.
but you can have them call you and it's a real person that calls you.
If they
Wait
do.
until it's
I-
No, they do.
until it's not, because that's where we are right now. Is we are at a point where you are going to be talking to a real person, and you'll be 5 minutes into it, and then it's going to occur to you, oh my gosh, this isn't a real person. This isn't a real person. It was when she asked me to leave my wife, I realized it was a robot.
We're joking today, but it's the future tomorrow.
Absolutely. Well, if there isn't any other topics, I've got some topics.
Well, didn't Chester have one?
We went through Chester's. It was the Ubi key, the security keys. Go ahead, Irving. What do you got?
Well, Starlink, and probably other services.
Mm-hmm.
I discussed this last meeting. When it goes down, Wi-Fi still works. We had already discussed that.
Yep.
And now I find when it goes down, my Ethernet, if I reboot my computer, it comes back on. So what do you think is happening there?
So when Starlink goes down,
The Ethernet part, the Wi-Fi continues to operate, but I have no computer service, let's say, on my desktop. And
but you're connected through an Ethernet cable. That's what you're saying?
That's correct.
And you've got the adapter from Starlink that plugs it into Ethernet.
Right, that's the only way it'll work.
And do you have your own router that you're plugging that into, or you're using the?
For the desktop in the office, no. I have a router for my other room because to bring the Ethernet through the house.
Okay, all right.
But I don't think that it has anything.
So for all practical purposes, your computer is wired to the Starlink.
That's correct.
And it goes down and it comes back up, and the Wi-Fi is fine, but then what comes across that cable is not, and you have to restart your computer.
I got to assume that something in my computer is a problem.
Well,
because the moment I reboot, Starlink is operating through the Ethernet.
Right. I think I'm understanding what you're saying. I'm not sure exactly why it would be behaving like that. That almost,
what it does is it means I can't use my desktop anymore. I have to go to a portable.
Well, unless you reboot it.
Unless I reboot it.
Have you tried just disconnecting the cable and reconnecting it?
No.
What that would do is it would force your computer to drop its Ethernet settings and then force it to get them again.
I'll try it next time.
Yeah, and if that works, then I would think it is in your computer that some issue's going on. Like the Starlink is coming back up with different settings, and you're not able to take advantage of those because your computer's not recognizing them. And by rebooting it, yeah, something like that. It shouldn't be. It absolutely shouldn't. It should recognize the settings have changed and reset them automatically. But that may, if that's the case, then it may bring you down the road of where are these things stuck. Refreshing them, reinstalling the Ethernet card might be the issue. The drivers for the Ethernet port might be the way that would fix that problem. But a good way to diagnose it would be to just physically disconnect and reconnect that cable and see if that makes a difference. And if it doesn't make a difference, then I would think it's in the Starlink itself that you're having problems. I would even take that cable and reconnect it to a different computer and see if that, watch it have the same problem on a different computer. Mm-hmm. If you follow what I mean?
I do. It's quite proving that it's the computer at fault.
Yeah. That if it has the exact same, if you pull it out of this computer, stick it in that computer, and it has the exact same problem on that computer, then it's something to do with the Starlink that's causing that issue. And it might be a firmware update. That would be a typical thing with any kind of device when you're having problems like this. Since it's got an app on your phone, you go to the app and see if they've got any kind of firmware update that needs to be installed. It might be something that they're working on rectifying. If it turns out to be the equipment, because it's Windows, right? That's the assumption I'm making.
Yes.
Because it's Windows, it's really easy to imagine it's in the computer that's having the problem and not the Starlink. But because Starlink is new, you always have to leave that open for possible problems.
It's very stable, but I've been reading that in rural areas it's not having problems. And I say, this being not a rural area.
Yeah.
The parts of the globe where it's brought internet to places that didn't have it, there's interruptions in service.
Yeah,
the Chinese are trying to jam it.
Yes.
Well,
they're trying to compete with you anyway.
Yeah, that's we talked about that a few weeks ago. There was one periodical in China that talked to the government, talked to industry leaders, saying they're going to launch 13,000 satellites to compete with Starlink. They don't want to be reliant on a system like Starlink. They don't think the United States should be the only ones that have a product like out there. And they also got into satellite defense, arming satellites against other satellites. It was a lot. It was a lot, and there was a lot of articles in the United States published on what this one journal reported from China. And I'm still left wondering what the intentions of all that was. I don't know if they were announcing their plan or if they were trying to scare the market. It's just not very clear. And because it was only one journal that was reporting this, there's not a lot of corollary information to go along with it. There's just a lot of speculation from people in security and in government based on this one journal in China that reported this stuff.
Well, it sounds like that the Russia and China and their associates are basically trying to undermine the dollar. The dollar's controlling the world right now. Their idea is they're the future and they're the world order. And so I think this might be just part of it. They want, it's like we want to stop dependence on their oil. They want to stop dependence on our technology.
Yeah, I read it. I read the translated original article, and I just couldn't help but feel like this is a PR piece. This is propaganda. It's
like their island building, that kind of thing. But you wonder how valid this is and how competitive does the U.S. want to be with China versus Russia?
Well,
what I'm trying to say, it's like almost as though our government is saying we really should be suspicious of these people.
Well, that's what's going on with TikTok right now.
Yes.
Is that there's it's a propaganda move, and it's really pitting us against China in this one narrow slice when we have all of this dependency on China all over the board, and they've picked TikTok to be the figurehead of all the frustrations we have with this country, where they've been collecting information on us. Our own systems have been collecting. Really, this would not be a problem if we had regulation against the collection of information in the United States. The problem isn't TikTok. The problem is TikTok is free to do to us what every one of these social media networks is doing to us right now. There's nothing that TikTok can do that we haven't allowed Facebook, Twitter, Instagram to already be doing to us. But they would rather talk about China than talk about our own personal data protection issues. They don't want that legislation being talked about in the United States right now in the government. So they want to talk about TikTok because it's Chinese. And I listened to some really good commentary earlier today, and they said, take everything. They first of all, these journalists thought this last congressional hearing was the biggest garbage of all the congressional hearings we've had in big tech. And that what they said was every statement that was made by a congressperson was emphasized at the end with in China. And if you took in China off of every one of these statements, it was the same congressional hearing that they had about Facebook, that they had about Twitter, that they invited Google to, that they invited Apple to. It's the exact same stuff, but it's validated because it's in China is attached to it. Whereas we should take that as an indicator of where we should really be focusing our efforts. And it's the part before in China that we need to be focusing on. I didn't mean to go off on a rant there. But what else do we got going on? I did put a couple of interesting articles I thought you guys would find interesting. Go to the document, and I sent you a post sent of the document so you'd have access to it. The first article I've got here is about a professor that's trying to protect our private thoughts from technology. And this sounds very sci-fi, and they make the argument for we need to put these legislative choices in place now because we're just around the corner from needing to protect. And they use examples of the implants that have been recently promoted, the control of artificial limbs that is going on right now, the idea that words can manifest on a screen from an implant that you have in your brain without using speech. And this article convinced me they're absolutely right. This probably goes along with my my feeling that we need a personal digital bill of rights. It should be included in that your headspace is by default protected, no matter what the technology is. If it's creeping into your thoughts, then that should be illegal. If it's doing it without your consent, that should be illegal. And this professor's point is we don't have any framework for that in our legal system right now.
Well, but that expands bureaucracy again. It's in the wrong direction. We should be moving in the exact opposite direction.
Well, I think I would disagree with you on that, Irving, because if you can see the crash coming, you should avoid it. If you see the pothole in the road, you want to find a different route. And right now it's becoming, we're getting closer to these kinds of concerns.
Sounds reasonable, but the things we are proud of have unintended consequences. And that's what I'm afraid of.
I'm thinking you need to be afraid of your TV looking at your brain, deciding this is what it needs to show you commercials of.
I'm not hiding anything. I have a very small brain, like most people, and there's really nothing you can take from it.
Your vote.
Huh?
Your vote.
Or what about stuff like
They
my
lost my vote as a kid. I shouldn't say that. I'm a very cynical person.
what about things like artificial limbs that have a subscription service?
That's pretty capitalistic.
Could you imagine, like you get your arm, you lose your arm in the war, and the VA puts a new robot arm on it, but you're tied into a subscription service that they get to decide whether they're going to cover it or you cover it, or maybe your insurance premiums.
Well, that's 1984, and if it comes to that, I mean, there are no choices.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think
1984 being the book.
Well,
Yeah,
I realize that it's also Pink Floyd The Wall. So anyway,
The premise is different.
I mean,
I believe people have to be thinking about this stuff.
It's already there.
Things out there in the world that we are catching up on. One of my, I've said before in this, I'm less scared of regulation of technology than I was when we first started, because before I felt like it would hamper innovation, and now we've seen what innovation does, and we've got some technologies now that are solid and fundamental, and they need to be reined in by the way we want our community to work.
Thinking about what you're talking about, you're basically talking about mind reading.
Yeah.
To what extent they can do that? Obviously, medical devices that improve people's lives are welcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if they actually can attain technology that can read your mind, people are too ugly. I mean, their thoughts are horrible.
Yeah.
And so what a world, it would be chaotic.
I don't know. I think mind reading is a good analogy for what they're talking about.
More of a control issue.
Like control. So next you read it, then they might be able to control.
Well, and that's the reason that this professor is feeling like we need a framework for this, because we're just moments away from our thoughts being interpreted, and who gets control over that?
Well, mind control is practiced in all of the organizations that use a bad example, prayer, or examples of political discourse. We're all being brainwashed by our different governments, not just the United States, but everywhere, especially societies.
Like the United States.
What?
Like the United States.
We're working our way out there. and so, if you have the mind control, you take away our greatest freedom, which is our freedom of thought and speech. That basically is what keeps revolution alive. If they take that away from us, then we're truly in a society like communism to the fourth degree. Not saying communists is solely the issue.
Oh, I said it already, but I fully believe things like this, they belong in a digital Bill of Rights. If you say that no, if you say that technology does not have the right to your brain right from the get-go, that this space, this physical form is free from unsolicited connections.
Doc, you're having having controls is not a bad idea, but having a Bill of Rights it comes down to an old thought. Only made, if it wasn't so, you wouldn't need them. And so any Bill of Rights is basically a license to cheat.
Well,
But another way of going about it, a new idea out of the box, then it makes a lot of sense.
I think the Bill of Rights, what it does is it defines the parameters in act. So if if it's decided that you have violated somebody's rights, they are doing it wrong. They are illegal. There are repercussions.
But if you look at our society, is that the word, litigious society we live in, where everybody sues everybody over nothing, and we got all these attorneys.
But
the worst part of our society. This is just another food on the menu. Let's get a Bill of Rights on this where we can. It'll be abused.
Enforcement.
Yeah, it'll be abused. Who's to enforce it? Therein lies the problem. That's the part of the unintended consequences of so many of the things that we've done in the United States, involved in other countries that have had the reverse effect of what we intended.
I think that a Bill of Rights, and I'm definitely taking the other side on this. And I see you playing the devil's advocate.
I'm not disagreeing with you. It's not the way you want. But not another law.
I don't know if it would be a law or if it would be fundamental principles like our Bill of Rights from the creation of our country, is that every time you're making a law, every time you're making a judgment, they have to look at that and see if it corresponds with the fundamental nature of a digital persona.
But in order to get this Bill of Rights, we have a dysfunctional government. It's never going to happen.
Therein lies the key. Law without justice is not either justice or law. And obviously our government, especially the United States, is arbitrary.
It's not arbitrary. It's whoever has the most money. That's how our law works in the United States.
Canada, we have the best justice.
For argument's sake, they can decide.
Sister nations to the United States, obvious.
Here's a decision they can make. Out of the blue, they can say, oh, you get all your money back. The insurance don't matter. Your house, you're insured for $100,000. Your house is worth $20 million. We're taking off the limit. You get the whole $20 million. We can do that. All our laws, especially real estate laws that have been proven over and over again to they're null and void. Could this happen? No. Just read the paper last week. And it happens all of the time. House, you got a tenant. They don't pay. Can you evict them? Oh, no. The government says no. Oh, you have a person that moved into your house. What do they call those people?
Squatter.
A squatter.
Mm-hmm.
Can we call the police to get the squatter out? No. If they come outside, we can do something. We cannot go into your house and get out these illegal squatters. And
It depends on
this is a very typical example
That's how it is in Colorado.
every day now, in every way. The government is arbitrary in what they want to do based on the interests of the wealthy or the corporations, or more likely, the people that put them in office, however that works.
Are you finding that the most successful countries then are the smaller ones? I think geography has a lot to do with it.
With whether they're successful?
Politically successful and with a contented population where they all have something in common. I mean, a grocer in Oregon has nothing in common with a Seminole in Florida. Belgium seems to work. Denmark seems to work. Finland has purportedly the happiest population in the world. These are smaller indigenous countries that all have something that holds them together.
I always associated that with more equality, like Finland, more equality, not necessarily their size, but they don't have the extreme classism that we have in the United States.
That's a big issue, because it used to be that, you know, if your top marginal tax rate was 90% in 1963. And
we know that because we were just talking about it. Someone here Googled it.
And so that was the case, and the CEO was making 10 times as much as the average earnings of his workers. Well, now it's 400%, and the marginal tax rate is, what is it, 20-something%?
Right, I paid that year, I paid 75%, and I was earning about $70,000. 75% was costing me.
But only on the last 10,000.
That's true. I was always graduated, but like, as you said,
But that kind of thing works if everybody is in the same mode.
But
Look at the
industrialists-
socialist countries that are successful. Sweden.
Okay, or just to think of Japan, it's not a socialist country, but if you you know, how does somebody gain prestige in North America? Canada, I mean, that's kinds of money, stick it in their ears and go, everybody else, you know, that's what can you do with money? Eventually you've got so much. Well, in Japan,
you fly rocket ships. That's what you do. You don't pay your employees enough health care, but you fly rocket ships.
But in Japan, your prestige is not from how much money you earn, but by how many people you employ. So as people get more wealthy, then they figure out ways to do it. It takes 5 people to sell you an ice cream cone.
In Japan.
One to take the money, and
this
one
is
to...
through research, through information.
Well, I've been to Japan, and I've seen there's 5 people selling me an ice cream cone. It's just everybody has jobs. Okay, and they work long hours, and they don't have a lot of free
They
time.
work a lot of long hours.
Yeah, they work, you know, 6-day weeks and 10 hours a day.
35% of women don't ever have sex and don't want it. That's according to the studies that they said. As part of this working, Judy, as part of this working, having your entertainment in the company and having men and women separated to enjoy their social lives, and that's all part of this. Like you said, they work very, very hard. It's the major
They
part
work
of their
long,
life.
not hard, but long.
Long, and they sleep in these companies, and their gyms are in these companies. And it's almost like the company is their entire social net.
Yeah, they go on holidays as a company in a bus, and
I'm saying, when I read these articles, you try to say why, you know, through the years, there's reasons, and I think that's very correlated to why it is like that, even though it sounds like impossible, because it seems to go against human nature itself.
there's as many lawyers in Japan as in Manhattan.
Wow. Back to my lawyer story.
That's a lot of lawyers in Japan.
Really, when you come,
I was just being facetious.
I'm not by population.
I just assume there's a ridiculous number of lawyers in Manhattan.
Yes, well, but there's a ridiculous number of people in Japan. Well, it's 70% on the open land. You know, it's they live in very tight borders.
Back to the main subject. Anytime you give up any more of our freedom, which we have in our lifetime, a tremendous amount, I don't think it can be a big thing. There may be another way to go about it.
Well, this article has done what I hoped it would. It generated a great conversation, and I hope you'll take time to read it, because I do think that there is a concern that we are on the cusp of technologies that are going to be intrusive into your thoughts. And this concern is that we have no legal framework for what that means. And it's the big difference between letting something happen to us or us dictating how it's going to be used. And that's all about foreseeing in the future. And so this kind of thinking, I think, is important. Whether it results in anything, that's again, politics and the way we do things. We failed at a lot of things, and it may not be implemented well, but it definitely is better to, in my mind, to be looking at these things as they're coming at us than to be blind to them running us over. And the point of this is that it's there. We're already seeing it manifest in different areas. I had another article. See, I've got a lot of stuff that probably would scare you or make you laugh. Yeah, the article, how to hack your voice assistant through inaudible sounds. So if you could imagine, they being the almighty hackers out there doing whatever they want with it. It's inaudible.
Not voice.
That's right.
So household sounds.
Sounds that are incoherent to the human ear, that can be used to send commands to your mobile device or your speaker assistant, or even the worst hacks that you'll read about in this article is when you use the speaker. So you've hacked into somebody's personal assistant, like an Echo device, and you're using that speaker to send commands to the speaker. So you can, at a tone that you can't hear, you can use the speaker sitting on the kitchen counter to open the smart lock of the front door.
Will it counterfeit your voice?
Well, one of the things in this article it talks about is taking advantage of, if you can profile voices, use voice profiles, because it becomes much more difficult to do these kinds of activities. I think about, we have an Echo device on our kitchen counter, and I've never bothered to set it up for, this is Yuya's voice, this is my voice, this is my daughter's voice. I've never set those profiles up, and they say if you're not doing that, then you've left this device open to a spectrum of sound that includes these inaudible hacks. And so that's one of the suggestions that you can make to circumvent this.
So did you all not see this coming when they came out with these devices? Why do you have these devices?
The inaudible hack is not something that I had considered.
Really?
This idea that these tones.
You don't see this little thing that's sitting there quietly spying on you?
Oh, I definitely see that.
Well,
yeah, absolutely. But there again, security is a balancing act between convenience and security. And so whenever you put one of those in your home, you should be having this discussion with yourself. How secure do I feel being able to set kitchen timers at a whim? Right? Or ask for the weather, or ask for traffic reports, things like that. You've got to make that decision. Was that worth Amazon collecting all my shopping information on me, or able to know when people have come home at a specific time? Yeah.
Is more important than your shopping data.
Yeah. You've got to make those decisions for yourself. But if you are using these devices, here's something that was not foreseen, that this can be used as a remote control, and it can be without your awareness that it's being done. And it's being done in an old school fashion of literally just sounds that you can't hear, that a human can't hear, but these devices can.
So can your dog hear these sounds?
I don't know, but I believe that what they're talking about is at the same level as like a dog whistle. Like they are inaudible sounds to the human ear.
Train your
Outside
dog.
of our spectrum.
Yeah, outside of our spectrum of hearing, which makes it much more dangerous. You could imagine that one of these hacks could go, well, they're looking for audible controllers, like a smart speaker or your phone. There's a number of people out there that are using an iPhone or a Google-based phone that have their voice assistant on all the time. And those platforms actually want you to have it on by default. So if you just bought a smartphone and you're not technically literate, there's a good chance that you have this device in your pocket that's just constantly listening to the world around you and ready for you to say, okay, Siri, or okay, Google, or, so that it'll respond. And it's in that state that these inaudible hacks can be performed. You could come across an area, you could go into a coffee shop and there's some hack device in the corner spitting out commands that can be heard by your phone, and no one's aware of it. No one's any more the wiser. But it could be asking your phone to perform activities that you're unaware of because it's sitting in your purse. And you've had this.
Who has the resources to develop this?
Well, yeah, in this case, I think it was.
That's right, that's right.
It was the University of Texas in San Antonio that figured out how to do this. And it's called near ultrasonic inaudible Trojan. That's what this kind of attack is called.
When you come right down to it, we've taken in the Trojan horse.
Yeah.
Basically, and there's no way. And when you consider the fact that these things are so easy to work for people who have had the facility and brought up with them, just like kids. You know, we know how to dial a phone. We learned to do that when we were kids. But these kids have far more aptitude. Over half, half of less than average intelligence.
You're talking about the United States right now?
Half the people are less than half average intelligence. I mean, that's how we got average.
Oh, that's how we end up with average. There you go. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't catch that the first time you said it. I'm way over on the left-hand side of that pillar.
That's it. Half the people are less than average. And so then you got all these people who are, like operating and stuff like this. They're not imbeciles. Right?
Wait, hold on. Now your premise doesn't allow for a bunch of super geniuses on one side.
And they'll be well protected. They're going to be using a Yale lock on the front door, not a Siri.
Right.
And so you can't. Your Bill of Rights will not protect anybody who doesn't know they've been attacked.
Yeah, and you're right. I don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. I just want it to be clear when a violation is happening, when you have invaded my space and we as a community have decided that's not allowed. So there are repercussions when it's discovered. In fact, one of the laws I live by is if it can be done with technology, it will be done with technology. And that's the reason I go back to regulation, is because the only way to stop it from being done with technology is for us as a community to decide that's not cool. We're not going to behave like that, and we're going to chastise people that do.
Yeah, I know that. With bylaws in towns and stuff like that, I always go to the people and say, well, if you do this, then one of your council could do that. If this is the new law, the future council can do this. They say, oh no.
The regulation itself is a big one.
Well, yeah, there's a better way to approach all this stuff, but I look at it like speed limits. I look at it like traffic lights. People wouldn't stop if you didn't have stop signs, and some people don't stop. Some people don't, but the majority of us do. The majority of us know what the rules are. We're not driving across the line and asking the people in oncoming traffic to figure out what we're thinking. That's illegal. We know it. We're going to end up in trouble or in an accident, so we stay on this side of the line.
There are people who look at it and they realize that it's only 1 in 10,000 chances if you're going 80 miles an hour down the street that are going to be able to miss anybody that's coming through in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. I mean, it's true. You could drive around and they're like fence posts at that speed. So, and you see it in police chases and whatever, where they're going blocking stop lines and stop signs. So,
but who's liable in the accident? And that's really what the Bill of Rights, the digital Bill of Rights idea is in the end, when things blow up, who are we going to hold accountable, and who are we going to teach how are we going to teach people who's accountable for when it blows up? And that's the reason the streetlights work, is because, yeah, 1 in 10 people might get caught running a red light, but those other 9 people aren't interested in getting caught. And so they're following the streetlight. This article, which I recommend to you, has 2 YouTube videos in it showing this attack. So that in itself is really interesting to watch as a football. I mean, there's no audio. I mean, there's audio, but there's no, it's like, shh, you're just here in the room, and you're watching this phone come alive and start performing tasks because they're receiving an inaudible attack. And so I think that's worth watching and being aware of, because this is the new. And I want to put one more in this concept. What if you've, and this has actually already happened before, but they did it intentionally, they did it verbosely. They put it into an advertisement, and it was like a Super Bowl advertisement, some Doritos advertisement, something like that, where it intentionally triggered your smart speaker and had it, and it was part of their PR, their promotional things. They put the words in the advertisement that would trigger a smart speaker and have it go searching out information and start spitting about the product that they were advertising.
People at home experienced it.
Yeah, and people at home experienced it, and there was an uproar across the internet that anyone would even try and do this, and immediately the smart people like Amazon re-engineered their system so that could not happen again. But it was a company like Doritos. I shouldn't throw Doritos under the bus,
I
but
think that's
what was it, Doritos? I really don't remember what kind, but it's of that level. And they triggered this mass PR campaign across people's, and that wasn't covert. That was overtly, their advertisement used the words that would trigger. They spent a lot, right? So now think about it like this. Any program might be compromisable from either a propaganda like advertising, or from a government, or a industrial espionage kind of point of view. Any program you might turn on Netflix, you might be the person that's worth figuring out how to get that inaudible signal into that program, or just a hack somewhere in the supply chain of entertainment to compromise 100,000 devices that are watching The Last of Us this week. Could be compromised to what ends I can't even imagine. But you can see that the potential of that, how easy it could be. Very little investment in the kind of value that might have to a bad actor.
Yeah, so a bill of rights would just be a license to litigate, basically, and only applied by the people who were aware of what could happen, and were observing things that might indicate that it was provable that it did happen.
Yeah.
So I'm on my way.
All right.
Just about, I remember about 2 years ago, you were on a campaign looking for Amazon trigger words that would.
That's right.
Yeah, and maybe that's what your problem was.
That they tightened up the reins on it.
Yeah, thanks.
You guys have a good trip.
It's been great meeting you all. Yeah.
We'll see you online, hopefully. Yeah.
You're in trouble if it gets down to me and you.
Probably not next year.
Oh, we always have good discussions, though, Irving. I appreciate everybody's point of view.
When did you leave for Alaska?
It would be the end of May. Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. Whether you should be concerned about it or not is a completely different subject. But it can't do what it needs to do with your voice without collecting it. There's just no way to do it. So anytime that you're speaking to technology, it's collecting your voice. to what ends, to how secure that is, it's a whole other discussion. Well, I mean, if we want to get really nuanced on this, everything is data now. So if there was a reason to intercept that conversation, it could be done because it's all ones and zeros in the great scheme of things. It's stored somewhere. It can be intercepted somewhere. Yeah. Now, some of the things that we've done as a society is that we've insisted on encryption. This is recent when we've had this ability for a long time, but we've started insisting on these encrypted endpoints. And in the case of you speaking to someone else on another end, then the point of compromise would have to be either your device or their device. And I use that kind of metaphorically because there's probably a couple of different places in between that, but you're really talking about before you put it in your endpoint, before and after it comes out the other endpoint is the most likely places where that information would be compromised. In that channel is virtually private because we don't have the technology to decrypt things. It's much easier to encrypt things than it is to decrypt things without the key. By design, that's the whole point, is that if you don't have this key that's missing, then it's random garbage that you're dealing with. Yeah, well, maybe a good analogy would be, imagine that you've got a jigsaw puzzle. That's your entire communication. Somebody's got a piece. Now, that somebody would have to imagine all the other pieces to have your conversation. They would have to have the facility to imagine each and every one of those pieces and how they would fit in that puzzle for them to have your conversation. And at the moment, that's just not possible with the level of encryption that we have. It's very easy to take away all the pieces and send them in different orders, but it's very difficult to imagine what that puzzle looks like from that one piece or from three pieces. But it's not impossible, it's improbable. And the probability of doing it goes up as we get more sophisticated technology. It's fundamentally part of our data acquisition system of our government is they will fundamentally store any of these encrypted conversations for an indefinite period of time, and they're allowed guise of training exercises because their goal is to be able to get into anything that's encrypted for the protection of our country. And so if it's not encrypted, they hold on to that information for 6 months, I think is the max that they can hold on to your information if it's unencrypted. But if it's encrypted, they're allowed to hang on to it indefinitely to be used as trials in making their technology better.
God, in that context, it makes sense. But what I see is individuals, average people like us, are concerned about security. But I think we don't have enough security. This is a dangerous world. And so I feel if you got nothing to hide, there's nothing to fear. People that be concerned about security are people that may have repercussions because of their actions. Either they're cheating or whatever they're doing, and especially our main use of technology where we have exposure is in banking, basically.
Sure.
And so if we're not doing anything wrong, it's in our best interest to increase security because of this is such a dangerous world.
Well, this is the argument that's been going on, Apple's argument for the longest time. Apple has just recently upgraded their iCloud offerings and their software in their devices so that you have more of that end-to-end encryption. And it used to be that Apple was able to hand over to the government, they would do it with warrant, information that was backed up in their cloud from your device if they come to them with a warrant. They couldn't give you everything in the device because there's a number of things that they've already encrypted. But they used to be able to give you this blob of information that sat on their servers, which was for a lot of people practically all their information, because it was left unencrypted. And they've only recently, in the last 2 months, released a version of their software and their iCloud that encrypts the two different ends, the computer at home and where your backup is being stored. And this is starting to get fallout from the government because they've done this. They've made it so much more difficult for, what they've done is they put themselves in a position where they can come at Apple with warrants. They technically cannot give you the information because they don't have those keys. They built it so they fundamentally couldn't. And their position is, we are all better off, like Irving's saying, we're all better off to have the privacy of this encryption. Whether it's bad actors or good actors, in general, our culture, our society is better off by this being the fundamental principle of security. On a footnote, law enforcement has always found a way to get information. They've never needed technology. They've never needed these companies to provide them with a way to get to your information. It's lazy thinking. And by making legislation that doesn't allow you to use encryption to protect yourself, then you have opened a hole of security that any bad actor can come through. Not to mention, bad actors are going to encrypt. Criminals are going to things. So you make it illegal to use encryption. The criminals are still using encryption. It's just us that have lost the protection of encryption. So I think Apple has a very good argument in that respect. I think they're a little disingenuous in other respects because they have a business model that they need access to your information. So some of their actions have been to their benefit. They've locked other people out, but it's to Apple's benefit because now they're the only ones that can. So there's a lot of nuances in Apple's position. But I think what they state as far as encryption is a very sound way of thinking. It's everybody benefits from it being encrypted.
On Facebook or Instagram and these things. Not because I'm afraid of myself. I don't want my information added to the information of the whole to be used to manipulate things like Cambridge Analytica, elections, wherever.
Right,
It's
right.
like not shopping at a store that policies I don't like. It's like I can withhold with my purse, try to withhold with my data.
Well, you know, and I think that makes sense. I think that's the reason people are so concerned about the idea of regulation when I bring it up, is that the free market is supposed to let you decide who you trust and who you want to do business with. The free market is, well, if you don't like that, don't do business with them. And I think that's a genuine approach. But we've reached a point that, like this max tech point, where that's not enough. You're being monitored everywhere you go with your phone in your pocket. Every store you go into, that information, even if the phone's, it's actually been proven. I mean, I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but that has actually been proven, at least with the Apple devices, is that they can track those phones regardless of whether it's been turned off or not. And there's a good, genuine evidence that's the only reason they don't have replaceable batteries. They prevent and maintenance and safety, but in the end, if you can't take out the battery, you can't turn off the device. We get to decide what kind of community we're going to create. That's why we can't be scared of regulation. Regulation scares old school thinking, but this stuff, it is proper now. It's not in its building blocks. It is fundamentally changing the way our society works, and it's time for us to start reining it in.
son, excuse me, over station years. And then now he works for Sikorsky and they're working on the programming training manuals for the next Marine helicopters. And he used to send me a list of words that I should never use in an email.
There you go. Yeah.
Now, I asked him about it last time I saw him, and he said, "Oh, don't bother, it's all."
It's all being archived.
Anyway.
Yeah. It's all being archived. It's all being fed through AI to understand your intentions, setting off red flags. There's layers upon layers of automatic processes until all of a sudden, no, this is too many red flags. Then it gets put off to a person who has to look at you as a person and do an internal investigation of it to decide whether you're a threat to anybody.
Every time he was promoted, I was investigated.
Yeah.
And then I've noticed the last 5 or 6 years, and I said, "You told me, you're moving up or whatever." He says, "They know." They're not going to talk to your neighbors anymore. They know.
Right. No, that's definitely where we're at.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, you're on the expat list.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. We used to be concerned about being put on a list, but now everybody's on a list.
It's very easy. Didn't used to be, did it? It's like they pull you up on the computer.
Right. They know everything about you.
Yeah.
It's not about being on the list. Every one of us is on a list. It's about what list are you on? Are you on the list of people that are intentionally trying not to be on lists? Because maybe that's suspicious. But
It could take, a good 5 minutes where they'd ask you some questions, make sure your English was American or whatever. Now it's, "Okay, Mrs. Mahoney, you have a good day."
yeah. My border crossing that was the most enlightening to me was one year I had to go up a month earlier than my family was regularly going up, and I was going up by myself. And I show up, and the guy looks at me, and he looks back over at his screen, and he looks at me, he goes, "Where's everybody else? Don't you normally come in a month?" Right? He had such a candid conversation with me about the information at his fingertips. Like, he was expecting me in June. He was expecting me with 3 other people. Cool.
If you're not online, I'll tell you a funny anecdote that occurred to me at the border crossing.
Well, let me shut this down, and we'll save that for that. This has been the San Carlos Computer Club. Thanks for joining us. Anyone's welcome to join us.
I want to recommend a great movie.
Oh.
Get a chance for that, just one.
You want to do it? Let's do it right now, because I'm shutting this down, and we didn't have any recommendations.
Watch
So what do you
The
got?
Whale.
Oh,
Whale.
the Brandon Fraser device. That was a great movie.
What's that?
The Whale.
The Whale.
I'm putting that in our
Is that
list
in
of
reference to the weight that he has in the film?
Yes.
Well, it's used in a number of different
in a
ways.
different context.
Yeah.
It's basically an essay or a poem. Moby Dick, I think, was the.
What was the basis of the essay that was written? It plays a role. I don't want to give it away because it's really a thought piece.
Yeah,
it's
just
not.
watch it. That's all.
Yeah, but that essay plays a role throughout the story, and then it becomes like a metaphor for what's happened to him, his life. As a result, he's ended up as this huge person. But absolutely excellent job. It's amazing how a good movie, like the whole staging is basically one room, right? The list of characters is less than 10 fingers, right? There's less than 10 people that are probably less than 5 critical people in this. It's a very character-driven story. It's really well done. And he won an award for it at the Oscars, right?
I didn't get that part. I don't follow. Anecdotes. So I was coming through. I used to drive.
Oh, I'm not offline yet. You want me to get offline? Because I got to get offline. So look for that. This is San Carlos Computer Club. I'm Scott Stimson from International Computer Solutions. If you're looking for solutions on the internet, get a hold of me, scott@internationalcs.net. And if you like our club, check us out at scclub.org. This happens every Tuesday at 10. Oh, and there will be 1 week, month that I'm not going to be able to be here because of this new work I'm doing in Phoenix. What I did last week will happen again next month. Until next Tuesday, everybody, tech on. And we'll be off in just a second here. And